Say really do the homework and hone in on your target market. Research, research, research. You have to be clear. You have to spell out your value proposition.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Dedrick Boyd. And Dedrick grew up in a single mom home, whereas until his mom eventually got remarried. Grew up playing high school sports and until the school schedule interfered with the sports and decided to go the school route. Also got into music, went off to college at Florida State. Struggled with kind of figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. Had good grades and did well enough. Was trying to figure out what direction to take, and then went to work for, I think, Arthur Anderson as a tech consultant for a while. Also got an opportunity to work in Paris for a bit of time, and then decided to leave the corporate culture and or the corporate world and to go out on his own to take care of himself. So became a tech consultant, worked for Nike, be his own business for a while, worked for some other lifestyle brands, and then decided to get into 3D or creating a 3D shopping experience and providing a new way for people to go about doing their shopping. So with that much as a an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Dedrick.
Thanks, Devin. That's great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I just gave the quick 30-second condensed version of a much longer journey. So why don't we go back in time a bit and tell us how your journey got started in doing high school sports?
Sure. So I was not the typical jock when I started high school. I started out as I was a star running back in football, one of the top sprinters on the track team, but there was always something missing. Sports, especially in the state of Florida, it's just different. So
Mhm.
early in my sophomore year, I felt this tug kind of down in my core. And the football program, as we have it, set out to change who you were. At least that's how I felt. It wanted to increase your anger, your aggression. And just let me tell you, I had enough anger and aggression for two or three players on that team. Having grown up in poverty and around rampant violence in the projects of Birmingham, as you mentioned, my father left when I was two, my biological father, that is. And I struggled with not feeling worthy and not fitting in my entire life. So by the time I got to high school, man, I was angry, I was sad, I felt alone, and thoughts of suicide were actually pretty rampant and very commonplace for me. So the decision to leave sports, when the coach kind of made it clear he didn't want me to take these advanced classes, the decision to leave sports was really easy. So, as you said, I dove into music where I flourished as well. This was expressive. It allowed me to channel all of this internal raw emotion, and it was a godsend. But again, I still struggled. So, around the age of 30, I took that step back from my career as a consultant in the Big Five, and I wanted to change my life. So that's how I started the company, had the simple ambition of wanting to see more of our country. And that's when I landed that first gig at Nike. And it was,
So, and I'll dive in just because you jumped over a good portion of the journey, so we don't want to jump too far into the future. So, went to high school, or did sports for a while, and then decided, hey, schooling is more important than sports. So I'm going to focus on schooling. Also, got into music a bit, and then you went out to got a degree in at Florida State. Now, what degree did you get in college?
so in college, this is a crazy journey. So I started out as wanted to go music performance, and then I moved to music education. I didn't make the performance major the first year. In my second year, they're like, "Oh, great, you will probably can get you in." And then I was like, "Man, if I don't make it as a performance major, like I don't want to go be a band teacher. There's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't for me." So
Sure.
then I moved to computer science and started doing the programming, and I was like, "This is great." But all the science classes, again, it wasn't for me. So I finally settled on management information systems, which gave me all of the programming, and then it gave me the business side of things too. So that was fascinating for me. Once I got into those major classes, I basically was on cruise control. It just clicked. It was kind of natural, and had a great 4.5 years there. I stayed an extra semester because I felt I could. It was great. I took 2 classes, and then we won a national championship that year. So it was really awesome. I drove out of the city of Tallahassee in a blaze of glory, off to Atlanta.
So no, it makes sense. So now you go off in a blaze of glory off to Atlanta, and I think as you're coming out of college, you first started out working for Arthur Anderson. Is that right?
That's right.
So what did you do for them, or kind of what was that initial job? What did you start out at?
Sure. So when I started out Arthur Anderson, I was brought into the advanced technology group. So we were consultants, basically some of the younger consultants that had programming in their history. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, if you go back in time, the computer boom was huge. So they were really looking for consultants that were basically technology forward consultants. So we worked there. I worked on digital marketplaces, basically for the first 2 years. So a lot of startups, a lot of very well funded startups. And so it was fascinating. I loved the work. It was a lot of custom work. I got to start traveling this country, and as you mentioned, one of my first projects was actually in Paris. I was on that project for a year and a half, basically going between Atlanta and Paris. I spent, I don't know how many trips I went back and forth, and I got to spend about 8 or 9 weeks there in a single chunk, and it was phenomenal.
No, it sounds like it was definitely a great experience, or at least a fun one that you got to go and see a different part of the world and enjoy it as you're working to get out of or working your or after school. Now, as you're doing that, so it's if I remember or going back on our conversation a bit, is you also weren't fulfilled or didn't or wanted to go your own way, or kind of what prompted going from working for Arthur Anderson, working in Paris, to deciding to do your own thing or to make that leap? Kind of what was the genesis or the motivation there?
Again, I wasn't really fulfilled, and I still felt like I didn't fit. This is a common theme from probably third or fourth grade or second grade, and it continued into my adult life. So I started out at Arthur Anderson. While I had a great time beginning to see the world, I'd never left the country. So Paris was a huge eye-opening experience. I actually went to Paris and went to Lisbon, and I was in Amsterdam, and I was in Barcelona, and got to see all of these different cultures. And then I came home and I was like, okay, I'm still not happy. Moved to California, did a complete, software engineering job for a year and a half. Decided Southern California wasn't for me. It's a different place out there. Moved back to Atlanta. Spent some time at Deloitte Consulting. Moved on to do e-procurement. But again, I just didn't feel like it was for me. I didn't feel fulfilled. The roles, the promotions that I were offered, nothing ever really mattered. It just didn't speak to me. So that's when I eventually said, okay, I'm going to take a step back. Maybe if I start my own company and really focus on me, maybe I'll get to this point of feeling like, hey, I know what I really want to do, and I know why I want to do it.
Now you say, okay, and I think that makes sense. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs or people that go through that phase, and hey, the work is good and enjoyable, so to speak, but on the other hand, it's not fulfilling, and you're saying, do I really want to do this when I grow up, or do I want to do this for the rest of my career, type of thing? And when you arrive at the answer that, hey, that answer is no, I don't want to do it for the rest of your career, then you have to figure out what you want to do. So now as you're saying, okay, Arthur Anderson's a good opportunity, but it's not for me, and I want to do something else. How did you kind of land on what you're going to do at that point, or how did you make that transition?
So this is an interesting story as well. When my time at Anderson began to wind down, this was the Enron and I think it was WorldCom fiasco that it ended up being. So many of us began to leave and go find other things to do. Some people stuck around, but a very good friend of mine, he told me, he's like, Dedrick, why don't you start your own business? You can go do independent consulting, and you can pave your own way, right? Instead of the big guys making all this money off of you and paying you, kind of peanuts, go do your own thing. And I was really, really afraid of that. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how, I can barely do taxes. What about 401k? And he was just like, oh, you're just missing it. So it took me a good 6, 7 years to finally say, you know what? How about I try to find work as that independent consultant on my own, and do the same thing I've always done with my clients because actually enjoyed the client work. The big apparatus was the thing that really didn't sit well with me. So that was kind of the catalyst.
And I think that that certainly makes sense. Nice and okay. Here's the catalyst. Here's what we're going to here's where I'm going to do. I'm going to go try it. I'll do independent consulting. I'll do kind of take that route. Now, as you're getting into it, I think you got into working on some brands like Nike and other lifestyle brands and starting there. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah,
So
that's
now as you're doing that now, so you're doing that, and I guess one thing, are you still doing the consulting, or have you put the full-time focus on what you're doing now with the augmented reality, virtual reality, different shopping experience? Kind of how did you make that transition, and kind of help us understand leaping to where you're at today, kind of what's been that journey?
Sure. So when I first landed at Nike, it was just another retail brand to me. I'd consulted at Target, Mattel, Unilever, all big companies prior, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. But the more I learned about Nike and how it operated, its philosophy, the more that lifestyle and luxury industry spoke to me. Lifestyle brands have a way of elevating how people feel. A pair of shoes, handbag, purse, whatever. They all have the ability to elevate the wearers. And some people use these goods as, a way to show off and broadcast, but it wasn't about that. It was about how you feel for me. And when you feel good, I think you're in alignment with who you are. So about a year into that gig, I zeroed in on my passion and it was life changing. As I stated earlier, I struggled with depression and suicide, but when I discovered that passion, that led to my purpose. My purpose and passion made it clear that I needed that help. And again, it was that passion was all about e-commerce, people being able to buy what they want online, and then elevate how they felt about themselves, right? Make themselves feel good. And so even, as we fast forward to today, when we're talking about immersive commerce and using 3D environments and AR and all of these advanced technologies, it's the natural evolution of, in my mind, it's the natural evolution of going onto a 2D grid and, clicking here and looking at a product and putting it in your cart. It's just the natural evolution of now doing that more in 3D and bringing those new technologies to the forefront.
Oh, definitely makes sense, and sounds like an exciting area to be. So now, and I may have missed it. You'll have to tell me. So, how did you? I guess is this now been the full-time endeavor? You decided, hey, I'm going to reinvent and reinvigorate a lot of the shopping experience. Are you still doing lifestyle brand consulting for others, or kind of is this a side hustle, full-time gig, two full-time gigs, or how did that work out?
Yeah, it's again, since we did e-commerce and we've always been in e-commerce as far as my company goes. That's just how it happened. I didn't plan that. This is just the next step. It's still e-commerce. What we're interested in doing is bringing humanity back to e-commerce. If you think about how you shop today, when you go on Amazon or if you go to Columbia's site or Nike site or anyone's site, really, it's a single player thing, right? Shopping has always been a team sport, right? We go to the market together, you go to the malls together. I don't know, I'm gonna show my age here, but when I was in high school, we would all go to the mall together and roam around and go to these stores and pick out pant, jeans and shoes. But you can't do that on the internet today. You sit in your house in front of your computer or on your phone by yourself. It's tough to share that experience with anyone else. So that's really how I got here. And would love to tell that story about watching my wife struggle. But yeah.
Oh, it sounds like it was a great journey and interesting. Always interesting that how you arrive at where you're at today. So now, as you kind of look out into a bit into the future, the next 6 to 12 months, and kind of where you guys are at and where you're headed, kind of what is that next 6 to 12 months look like for you? Is it, hey, we're going to go and land a whole bunch of big accounts, we're going to start our own thing, we're going to put out the product, we're going to ramp up the business, or kind of what does that future look like for you guys?
Sure. So over the next 6 to 12 months, we will be absolutely ramping up the business. We have three different product offering. We have one that's really focused on clienteling, so it's that one-to-one shopping experience, or kind of an elevated experience. And this is really speaks to those luxury brands where they have a deep relationship with a particular customer. Get them into this 3D environment, show them the different looks on an avatar that looks like the customer, let the customer walk around and control his avatar, swap out the different looks, different shirt, pants, all that good stuff. And so that's kind of the first offering. Then we have a private shopping offering where a brand can invite, say, maybe their top 20 clients, and you can show them through this environment, walk them through this environment, show them various product, let people ask questions. They can click and buy, add to their cart, all from this environment that they can control. And then the last is that full, wide open. It's kind of wild, wild west here, but the wide open virtual experience. So either a virtual pop up or a store that is, thematic, right? It's a theme for this particular brand, or it's just on brand, but kind of scale down their product offering and just let anybody in, up to 200 people. Let them hop in and walk around and click, and also partner up with their friends. In each one of these options, people can people can invite their friends, and they can hear each other and see each other and talk to each other, just like you can on video games today. The gaming industry's been doing this for 20 plus years. So it's ludicrous to me that we can't do this, and we haven't done this in other realms.
No, I definitely think that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think that, is finding that right adoption, that right use, making it a good experience, and making it something they want to do. And then there's all the opportunity to definitely make it something interesting and worthwhile for people to pursue. So it sounds like it'll be a fun or an ongoing journey for you guys. Well, as we start to wrap up the podcast, I always ask two questions at the end of each journey. And so we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
Whew. The worst business decision that I ever made, I think that is not understanding and not creating a strong brand image out of the gate. Early on, I didn't understand that I was the brand. And even once I began to understand that, I was really reluctant to get out there in front of everyone. I'm a bit introverted by nature, but as an entrepreneur, you are the brand, especially the first 5 years, maybe 10 years. It really is about you. The market wants to understand you. They have to connect to you, to your story. So you're out in front, and you have to learn, you have to spend that time learning how to tell the unique story that is you. So what I learned from that is, hey man, you got to tuck your inhibitions over here in the pocket somewhere, and just get out there and be you. And then when you need to take that time to recharge and reset, then step away and do that. Don't shy away from it.
No, I think that that's a great, and I think that, it's oftentimes hard because people don't necessarily want to be the face of the brand of the business, in the sense that they want to focus on building it or the product or being the guy in the background. And yet, to your point, there's a lot of, you're the one that came up with it. You're the one that's, the founder, the people, the one that people want to talk with and be able to get the experience from. And so you are going to be that a lot of times that face and brand of the business for quite a while as you're getting things up and going. And so it's the one where as you understand it, it definitely makes a big impact. Second question I always ask is, or if you're talking to someone that's just getting into their own journey, or getting or starting a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say really do the homework and hone in on your target market. Research, research, research. You have to be clear. You have to spell out your value proposition. While you're doing that, you have to then figure out how to differentiate your company from the rest of the market. Be contrarian. Everyone will say, do these five things. If you know that it's actually steps 1 through 3, and then 4 is totally different, bring that to the forefront, right? And differentiate yourself from the rest. And then lastly, I think business is really about relationship. It's not business to consumer. It's not business to business. In my mind, and why we have such a high repeat customer rate is because it's relationship to relationship. That's what's really important when you're talking about starting a business. Work on the relationships, really understand your customers. And I'm not saying that to be, oh, understand your customer. It really is important to have, they're people just like you are. So it's important to work with them, understand who they are, and actually foster the relationship.
No, I think that that is definitely a great takeaway and a great piece of advice. Well, as we wrap up the podcast, if people want to reach out to, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
The fastest way to find me is on Instagram. It's at real Dedrick Boyd. So RealDedrickBoyd. Or you can find me on LinkedIn at just, N and then Dedrick Boyd.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect, and find out more and support a great opportunity and a great cause. And I think we'll have a lot of possibilities in the future. So awesome. Well, with that, thank you again, Dedrick, for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click subscribe, share, leave us a review because we want to make sure everyone finds out about all these awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Thank you again, Dedrick, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much, Devin.